Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into your weekly dose of college football, the 5th edition, guys. It is finally here. We have week 0. We've got the Big Ten, Pac-12, and ACC joining together in their little alliance. A lot of stuff to get to this week, guys. Let's first talk about that alliance. As you can see here, the ACC, Big Ten, and Pac-12 have announced their alliance. The scheduling alliance will include, quote, additional attractive matchups across the 3 conferences. Now, this is just really in response to the current death grip the SEC has right now over college football with the recent news of Oklahoma and Texas, 2 of the biggest brands in college football, going to an already stacked conference. Really, in a word, what I would describe this alliance as a nothing burger. And the reason I say that is because you look at a team like Ohio State, they're saying, oh, we're going to schedule, a non-conference games with each other. Ohio State's already doing that. They've got a home and home with Washington coming up. They've got a home and home with Notre Dame, who, by the way, Notre Dame will very likely be a part of this whole alliance agreement. Because they've been in bed with the ACC for the past decade or so. I expect them to be part of this. But guys, overall, there's no signed contract. It's just going to be based solely on trust, and it's an attempt to kind of generate more revenue with these bigger non-conference games. But again, guys, it's really a nothing burger. They're trying to delay the SEC takeover. One quick thing I want to talk about: why we need the 12-team playoff. I know there's been some pushback, people saying you can't expand it to 12. The correct format, I view, of the future, due to Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC, the correct format is a 12-team playoff with the first 4 teams getting first-round byes. So that still emphasizes being one of the top 4 teams. You get that key bye, and then you have the 5v12 matchup, the 6v11 matchup, and so on, and then those teams end up facing the first 4 teams in a bracket, as you see right there. Why I think we must expand it to 12, because it's mainly due to the scheduling imbalances we're going to see. Now, guys, I'm not arguing. The SEC right now, even without Texas and Oklahoma, it is the best conference in college football. I agree with that. But you take a look at a team like Georgia's schedule this year in the SEC, it's pathetic. Now, that's not to say the SEC isn't the best conference in college football. It is, but it's not like the SEC has this overwhelming, crazy schedule. Some teams in the SEC definitely do have hard schedules, but you look at a Georgia example, the SEC East is still kind of a joke. The problem, once you add Texas and Oklahoma, you could have a team, for example, like a Florida team who may be really good, but let's say they lose to Oklahoma, they lose to Alabama, they lose to A&M, then they have 2 top 10 wins. You're going to get, if we remain at 4 or even just go to 8-team playoffs, you're going to get SEC fans saying a 3-loss non-conference SEC champ should be in the playoff due to the schedule over maybe a 1-loss Pac-12 champ, or a 1-loss non-Pac-12 champ, or a 1-loss non-Big Ten champ. The scheduling indifference of these conferences is going to be so big that I think we need to expand the playoff to 12 teams. I know it's a rapid expansion going from 4 to 12. Maybe you want to go 4 to 8 to 12 in kind of a baby step type deal, but I think going to 12, you keep the incentive with the first round, with the first 4 teams getting that round bye, so the incentive is there to be one of the top 4 teams. But it's just, the problem is the scheduling imbalance. You're going to see SEC teams with absurdly harder in-conference schedules than Big Ten teams, and the Big Ten is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and so are all the other conferences in terms of who do they add. I mean, the SEC poached the 2 top teams. So that's just my take on that. The whole alliance thing, they're going to be scheduling more games together. They kind of already do that. I mean, Michigan had a home and home with Washington, Ohio State home and home with Oregon. Those 2 of those games got canceled due to COVID. But they're already kind of scheduling with each other as it is. We'll have to see some of the matchups that come out of that. Whoa, baby, look at this graphic. This is just the 5 blue bloods in every college sport. And if you're looking for football, it's on the top, 3rd over from the right. So they've got Bama, Oklahoma, Ohio State as Notre Dame, and Nebraska as the top 5 blue bloods in college football. That's going to trigger a lot of people. But really, I just like looking at all the weird sports. Like, look at skiing. That's Denver University. You see right next to Colorado, that's Denver in the middle. Some of these sports, look at the bottom. Meat judging. Oh my, what is that? I don't even want to know what that is. But like, look at some of the weird teams, like some of the weird universities. It's amazing. I love looking at stuff like that. This is the top 10 current QBs according to College Football Twisted, whatever that is, some Instagram post. But it's just a complete, it's really an incomplete list without CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. I understand why you cannot put them on there right now due to them not playing any games. You see Carson Strong, De'Aaron King, but Dylan Gabriel is still at UCF. He's got to be a senior. Lord, please tell me he's a senior. Big Ten returning starters. Guys, the thing I want people to focus on is that Minnesota team. So Ohio State faces Minnesota next Thursday in Minneapolis. And it's really interesting. You look at Minnesota. I'm an Ohio State fan, but I'm actually really nervous about that game. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, but that's a Minnesota team returning 20 starters. Sure, they didn't have a good year last year, but the year before last year, they were really good. They were a surprise team. Last year, COVID hits and messes everything up. They've got Ibrahim, the star running back. They've got a veteran presence back at quarterback in Tanner Morgan. The game scares me a little bit. It's a primetime game. Maybe I'm just overthinking it as an Ohio State fan. Ohio State 13.5-point favorites currently. But that's interesting to me. And then you see, obviously Ohio State's not going to have many returning starters. How about Northwestern, man? That's why Northwestern is getting basically no preseason hype after being in the Big Ten Championship game last year. 25 loudest versus quiet stadiums. Tiger Stadium, yeah, you got the whiteout, Penn State, it's crazy. I would have loved to see Ohio State play in Oregon. That's unfortunately what happened last year. Ohio Stadium is really not that loud. Ohio State has a really weird game this year. It's a noon start against Oregon, and I don't think we're going to get much of a home field advantage. This is nothing against the student section or the crowd, but it's a lot like Michigan. It's very corporate. It's a lot of older people at these games. And even like Notre Dame, they don't really have a rabid fan base either. A lot of these college teams, some of them do a really good job creating that atmosphere. Kyle Field, the renovation they got there at A&M, they do a great job. But I would disagree with Ohio State being a top 10 most loudest place. They certainly have the attendance for it, but it's just the way the stadium funnels the noise. It's not one of the most loudest places. Preseason All-Americans. So this is a funny little thing. I was like, wow, Notre Dame and Iowa State, two teams I think are going to be really overrated this year, both with 3 preseason All-Americans. So that's really interesting to me. Then you've got, your Oklahomas, Clemson, Alabama, A&M, Ohio State, and LSU, all with 2, although one of LSU's is a kicker. But that's just interesting. Both of those teams, Notre Dame and Iowa State, I think are very overrated. I think Notre Dame loses at least 3 games with Jack Cohn back there. They're due for kind of a letdown season after having 2 really good seasons. Iowa State, they're a program, they have these newfound expectations. They're not used to being a team that is really this big-time top 10 AP preseason team. They've got these expectations now. They can't sneak up on teams. That is a very underrated Big 12 conference, guys. Iowa State's going to have trouble. Those are some good teams. The Big 12, say what you want about Texas. They're still a quality team. Obviously, Oklahoma. What about teams like Oklahoma State and TCU? Underrated conference, guys. Very underrated. Here we go. It's week 0. And one of my biggest pet peeves, guys, it's actually week 0, but the 0 is spelled out. You see on this graphic, they have 0 in number form. The way you say week 0, it's week and then Z-E-R-O. It's not the letter 0. So this is a wrong graphic, and it annoys me. But guys, how about Illinois and Nebraska? What a game that is. I actually love Nebraska this year. I just like their program. They've had a tough time. I understand it, but what a big win that would be for Nebraska to start the season with a road win over Illinois. Then you've got UCLA and Hawaii, the other big game. I think UCLA 17-point favorites in that one, so that should be good. I thought this was a really funny kind of summary of this whole alliance by the Big Ten in 4 different kind of pictures. So here it is. The Big Ten, ACC, and Pac-12 alliance really isn't an alliance. There was no written agreement signed, just simply a mutual agreement that they would be scheduled more out-of-conference games between the 3 conferences. This has no real effect on the landscape of the college football world, could play a factor down the line in terms of other Power 5 sports. Yes, like college basketball, I agree on that. In summary, this was just a publicity stunt to distract the national media from talking about the SEC. I think that's a really good summary on this alliance. They had to do something. They're trying to generate more revenue with these bigger games, but they're just more non-conference games they're going to be scheduling together. That's really not much. Top 50 kicker-punter duos in college football. Wait, why did I screenshot this? Who cares about who cares about this? I don't know why I screenshotted this. Sometimes I'll just screenshot random stuff and then I'll just try and like, dude, I don't know. I'm just gonna shut up for a few seconds and let you guys look at this graph because it's so important. 3 teams that will perform worse than expectations. Going with Bama, I mean, basically the expectation for Bama is to win the title every year, so I guess Cincinnati, that's an interesting one, and Florida. I've been seeing a lot of people that think Florida's overrated. I haven't seen much hype for them. LSU, I think LSU is going to be pretty good this year with Max Johnson. Coastal Carolina, I agree. I think they're going to lose to Toledo. I do. And then Texas, everyone thinks Texas is overrated at this point. Oregon, that is a tough Pac-12. Stanford has no expectations. That's such a cop-out pick. Notre Dame, I do agree with. And then this Katie girl, Northwestern, they have no expectations. They return nobody. BYU, I could see. And then Michigan, everyone thinks Michigan sucks. I don't see how they have big expectations, but we'll see. College football teams with the... Oh, this is so funny. So, yeah, Yale's number 1, Alabama's number 2. This is kind of something I quickly wanted to talk about. Is there a way we can clean up legitimate national titles? It's really not a shot at Alabama. They've won the most competitive titles. I view the past, 10, 15, 20 years, since the playoff, these are the most competitive titles. They won the titles that mean the most. But, guys, Alabama claims as one of their 16 titles a season where they finished in the poll, I think ranked 20th, and they had 2 losses. It's just so stupid, and that's one of their 16 claimed titles. You've got Yale and Princeton, obviously a lot of their titles coming back when there weren't many teams in college football. Like, is there a way to clean this up and actually show an accurate count? It's just, I don't know. I just find it so annoying that we go by claimed titles, and it's really not it's not a shot at Alabama. Alabama has won the most competitive titles, playoff era. They have 3. It's crazy. It's unbelievable. They have a crazy dynasty, but you're really going to claim a national title back in 1944 when you finished 20th in the poll and you had 2 losses, and that's one of your 16 claimed titles. What are we doing here, guys? The national title, it's the most prestigious thing. How are we letting these schools claim these things? It's ridiculous. This is just a quick update, and this does not surprise me at all when it comes to the SEC expansion. The expectation is that Oklahoma and Texas will be in the SEC next season, so they will buy out of their sort of TV contracts with the Big 12. I think it's going to happen ASAP, as soon as possible. We obviously already know this is a done deal. It's a matter of when, not if now, and it's kind of awkward with Texas and Oklahoma still being in the Big 12. I think they want to get out as soon as possible, and if it's not next year, it's definitely going to be the year after that. It's definitely going to be before 2025, and if this jump happens next year, would not surprise me at all. It's awkward. We know they're not going to be in the conference for very long. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's get this done. Let's get Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC. So apparently USC and LSU have scheduled a game in 2024 at the new Las Vegas Stadium. That's a hell of a matchup. I like that matchup a lot. I think USC is going to be pretty good by 2024. That should be a good matchup. This is just an unfortunate situation. Cam Babb has now suffered 4 torn ACLs dating back to his senior year of high school. Left ACL twice, right ACL twice. Dude, this is a kid that I thought was going to be kind of like a better version of KJ Hill. You guys remember KJ Hill, the slot receiver, possession receiver for Ohio State? Cam Babb was supposed to be kind of like the better version, or at least that's what I thought we were getting in him. Wow, 4 ACL tears, 2 to each leg. Oh, he's still going for it, man. I'm rooting for him so hard. It's going to be very tough to crack that Ohio State receiver room. You can see PJ Fleck on the Ohio State receiver room. Quote, this wide receiver core they have might be the best wide receiver core I've ever seen on one football team. He's not exaggerating. That's not just coach talk. You have 2 potential first-round picks, Chris Olave, who could have been a first-round pick last year. He came back to Ohio State. And then you've got Garrett Wilson, a former 5-star. Then you've got guys waiting in the wings like Emeka Abuka, former number 1 overall receiver in the 2021 class. You've got Jackson Smith-Njigba, another 5-star. You've got Julian Fleming, the former number 1 overall receiver in the 2020 class. I have not seen a wide receiver room this loaded in a while. You've got receivers transferring to Alabama. To start at Alabama because there's simply no room at Ohio State. It is absolutely crazy what's going on there. I know this is pretty Ohio State heavy. I'm sorry, guys, but I am an Ohio State fan. It says, I have no idea who will lead Ohio State in rushing yards this year, and I'm not worried because they are all studs. So, guys, my take on the whole hierarchy when it comes to the Ohio State running backs, I think TreVeyon Henderson by midseason will be the starter. He's a former 5-star, number 1 overall running back prospect. He is a true freshman, but we saw J.K. Dobbins back in 2016 as a true freshman start and have a hell of a season, phenomenal season. So I think Henderson by midseason should have no problem starting. As a true freshman, running back tends to be one of the easier positions to transition to from high school to the NFL. I love Myron Williams as a short yardage back. Love him. He's a guy, 4th and 1, 3rd and 2. Give him the football. We only saw a little bit of him last year. People maybe overrating him a little bit, but short yardage, give him the football and get out of his way. Again, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2. Those downs, Myron Williams, love it. And then you've got the veteran presence in Master Teague. He's a great student. He's a phenomenal kid. But the best players are going to play at Ohio State. Unfortunately, Master Teague struggles with vision, struggles with making swift, quick cuts. And that's kind of why Master Teague is getting pushed down the depth chart a little bit. But guys, that is going to do it for this edition of your Weekly Dose of college football. I believe this is the 5th edition. We have week 0 this week. Everyone, enjoy. Everyone's like bad-mouthing week 0. Why don't you just enjoy the Illinois-Nebraska game, ladies and gentlemen? This is a quality Big Ten matchup. This is a quality Big Ten matchup, ladies and gentlemen. But make sure, on a serious note, you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description, guys. I am, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.